Because of many problems in the country, a group of reformers in the reform movement came to be grouped under the label progressivism. About 1900, a new group of writers began to expose corruption in American society. These writers were called muckrakers. The muckrakers created a public demand for reform. The progressive reformers shared at least one of three basic goals. First, to reform government and expand democracy. Second, to promote social welfare. Third, to create economic reform. In the 1870s and 1880s, elected officials handed out government jobs and contracts. In return, they won political support. This practice is called patronage. Finally, Congress passed the Pendleton Service in 1833. It required people to take civil service exams for certain government jobs. It also prevented elected officials from firing civil service workers for political reasons. Now I'll talk about the direct primary. In a direct primary, voters, rather than party conventions, choose candidates to run for public office. In Oregon, a newspaper editor promoted three reforms besides the direct primary. Initiative, which allowed voters to propose the law directly. Referendum, a proposed law was submitted to the vote of the people. Recall, this reform allowed people to vote an official out of office. Next, they worked on promoting social welfare. For example, Jane Addams provided social services to poor at the Hull House. Prohibitionists also worked on welfare. They worked to prevent alcohol from ruining people's lives. The third progressive goal was to create economic reform. By the late 1800s, business leaders in some major industries had formed trusts. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 made it illegal for corporations to gain control of industries by forming trusts. Theodore Roosevelt, the first progressive president, helped bust up a railroad trust. He enforced the Antitrust Act as well. Roosevelt pushed many reforms. For example, in 1906, he signed the Meat Inspection Act. He also signed the Pure Food and Drug Act. He did not push for civil rights for African Americans. He believed that discrimination was morally wrong, but he did not take the political risk of leading a fight for civil rights. Roosevelt was also a strong fighter for conservation. Roosevelt preserved more than 200 million acres of public lands. He established the first wildlife refuge at Pelican Island, Florida. Since Congress refused to establish any more national parks, Roosevelt used the Antiquities Act to create national monuments instead. This is how he preserved the Grand Canyon and the Petrified Forest in Arizona. And although the next president, William Howard Taft, was not as interested in conservation, he did continue Roosevelt's progressive reforms.